Hi everyone, welcome to the first ever Watch Jelly podcast. This is Alvin. So Watch Jelly, we're gonna start a podcast series, and this is the first of many. And most likely, we will be looking at this format for the ensuing months and years to come. Hopefully, if we're gonna last that long. So, first of which, first things first, I would like to just introduce one of my oldest friends as well. He's within my circle of friends who were previously invited to the Watch Jelly a YouTube series where we had the luxury of chatting to them in person in a highly curated video, sharing about their career, their life, and their watches. So here we have today Poh Jinhui, or affectionately known as Poh, among my group of friends. So Poh is calling us from a certain hotel, still doing quarantine, and we're in mid-December 2023. So jarring a situation that we're still in. So Poh has very graciously agreed to come on. So I will pass on the time to him. And Poh, please tell about yourself and how are you doing, bro? First of all, how are you doing, bro? I know that you've just arrived in Beijing a few days ago. So tell me how it's like to arrive at a country still still transitioning into from COVID zero to an endemic situation.
Yeah, Vin, thanks for inviting me. I'm doing well. I think quarantine is obviously not preferred, but it's one of those things you have to accept if you are to travel to China. So I arrived in Beijing 4 days ago on Tuesday, and I'm just about finish out my 5 days quarantine. I'm here to visit my fiance, so not here for work. It is somewhat challenging given where COVID policies are for China, but I think things are getting better. And one thing that one takeaway from quarantine is it's probably a good chance to reset yourself, and get away from the busy stuff in your daily lives, and just get into a routine that's much more simpler, and moving away from alcohols and all of the rich food. Try to appreciate simple things in life. And I've done this is actually my third quarantine. I've done a 21 days before in Shenzhen.
Damn.
I did a 10 days in Tianjin, all in the first half of this year, and this is my third one, and it's 5 days plus an additional 3 days of isolation at home. So all things considered, I think this is not too bad. It's obviously not preferred, but I think relative to many others, I think I'm doing relatively well.
That's good, bro. I think I fell into the same boat as you. So you said you did 10, 21 before, and then now you're going to do, and now you're about to finish your 5 days. So for me as well, similarly, I did a 14 day, a 7 day, and a 3 day before. So but that's in Hong Kong, maybe slightly less inhumane, for lack of a better term. But we're both in the same boat. We both experienced the similar things, bro. So maybe in terms of coming to Beijing, I clearly it's not your first time in Beijing. You've worked here before in your illustrious career, stretching about 9 or 10 years as I know. So maybe tell us a bit about yourself. I think for those of you who are listening to the pod, Poh is a friend of mine. I mean, we both knew each other since middle school, secondary school in Singapore, and I think Poh he stepped into the rambunctious world of finance, the rambunctious part of finance, which is in infrastructure funds, I guess, private equity. So maybe Poh, you could just tell us a bit about that, how you stumbled into this, or was it all planned from the start, like a maestro when you were still in university? Tell us, let us know. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I'm a Singaporean, so like you, I grew up in Singapore. I went to college here as well. Graduated. Coming to 10 years now, and I joined Macquarie, which is always a bank and an institution known for infrastructure investments. And in fact, Macquarie was the one who pioneered this new sector and asset class. To your question, I actually didn't know what I was getting into. To be honest, before I started working, I didn't know what infrastructure was, and I think today when I try to explain to my peers what I'm doing, is always not so straightforward, because it's one of those things we all use and need on a daily basis, but it's not stuff that we think about that much. And just to give you a little bit more examples around what we invest in, we invest across energy infrastructure, and that's renewables, gas, and turmoil. These are things that are actually quite interesting, but people don't take notice of on a daily basis. We invest into environmental infrastructure, and that's waste, recycling, for instance. We invest into transportation infrastructure. There are toll roads, airports. There are transportation fleets, EV fleets that moves things around for us on a daily basis. We also invest into digital infrastructure, which is becoming more and more interesting. And I think in Asia in particular, a lot of transactions have happened in the last 3 years. And that's, telco towers, that's data centers, to give some examples. So I think stepping back, infrastructure investments is actually a type of, it's similar to private equity funds, except that we only focus on infrastructure as a sector in our funds. And I think we live in a generation which is kind of trying to better understand. I think it's a pretty interesting era that we live in. Today, the world is increasingly focused on energy transition.
You're right. Yep.
Moving away from heavy carbon energy assets into cleaner technologies. But what's interesting is there's actually not a clear view in terms of what should power our economy going forward in the future. Bill Gates thinks that the world should spend more resources on nuclear energy, for instance. Not everyone agrees with that. There is also a thesis that renewables is the future, renewables and potentially batteries. And there is also a different school of thought that focuses more on newer technologies such as hydrogen, and EV charging is obviously. EVs are obviously a big part of this whole equation. I was just watching a very interesting video last night, which is if we were to fully electrify the current transportation fleet, moving into a world of just renewables, hydrogen, EV, electric powered
vehicles.
To do that, the amount of metal resources we actually need 7,000 years to mine that.
Correct. I think I actually understand that as well. I think in my work, I also, without divulging too much, I think in my work as well, I do look at commodities, and I believe a strategist that I do work with from time to time has mentioned that there's simply not enough copper, and I guess to a certain degree palladium as well when it comes to basically electrifying the whole vehicle fleet, just in the US alone, never mind the world, right? So I think that's very interesting. I think to your point, you say that obviously you cover infrastructure funds, obviously not infrastructure meaning across various sectors and industries as well, but what would be your, assuming if you were to choose, if I were to put you in a spot as well to ask you a question, which would be your something that you favor the most, that you like the most in terms of the various part of infrastructure? Is it in the energy transition space? Is it in the digital economy that's going to power the world in the next 10, 20 years? Where does your interest lie, if you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, obviously I'm still at an early stage of my career, so I'm still learning about a lot of new things. I would say there are two main areas. One is energy. It's an area that is constantly evolving. What you would have thought 3 years ago, 4 years ago, is actually things would have been very different today. And I think that's quite exciting. The second one is just the evolving landscape of infrastructure as a sector class. And I say that because I actually spent some time on core plus infrastructure. And to put that into perspective, in the past, logistics, they are not part of infrastructure funds mandates. Data centers, they were not part of infrastructure funds mandates. Industrial infrastructure, they were also not part of the infrastructure funds mandates. But today, infrastructure funds have become larger and they are expanding their mandates. And I think people are just thinking out of the box to see, what are some of the attractive sectors or businesses that are not within our mandate, but actually meets a lot of the infrastructure characteristics that we like, and we should think about them as potential targets and investments for the funds. So I think that's pretty interesting. Just being able to learn new things on in your daily work, as well as think out of the box around what are the things that we should be doing but are not yet doing today.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think the one cool part I feel that in what you just shared is that you get to, I wouldn't say just look at one specific area. You do get to dabble across different projects, which adds to the variety of what you do. And I think that as opposed to doing a single thing for 10 years, I'm sure you've looked into several industries as well.
Yes, just to give one more example, last year this time I was in Australia. We're looking to buy a portfolio of hospitals located across Australia and New Zealand. In the past, hospitals, you wouldn't have thought of them as being infrastructure, but the reality is it's a backbone of our social community, right? When you fall sick, when you require treatment, you go to hospitals. It's a sector that's been underinvested historically as well, even in markets, even in OECD countries like New Zealand and Australia.
Yeah.
And we were looking at that. We thought it was interesting, and we were trying to convince our IC that this is infrastructure and why we think it's attractive. At the end of the day, we didn't end up buying it because someone went in with a valuation that was 30-40% higher than ours. But on hindsight, I think we've learned a lot from it, and I think it just gets us to even to think more about what else we should be looking at besides traditional core infrastructure, which is becoming more and more competitive because there are more and more dry powder in this part of the world.
Yeah, just to make a bit of a turn. So suppose you get to talk to yourself in your third or fourth year in university, or maybe just speaking to generally students or people, or even young professionals 1 to 2 years out of university who may be keen to look to explore this space and get into this space. For someone like you who have been here 9 years, 10 years, working for 2 different firms, what would you say if you could just give a couple tips? Like what kind of mindset should someone have? What kind of intangibles should someone have? What kind of or even from a firm standpoint, what type of firm should you look to do? If you could just tell us a bit about that, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Stepping back, I spent about 9 years in Macquarie. I left around middle part of this year. I joined BlackRock, which is expanding to Asia infrastructure. So I've only been with BlackRock for about 3 months now. To your question, I think I've been very fortunate. I left college in 2014, then I joined Macquarie. To be upfront, I didn't know what infrastructure was, and I still find it hard to explain to my peers at times today. I definitely was not prepared for it. It was by chance that I joined Macquarie and ended up spending close to a decade in this
space. Yeah.
And
intangibles, for intangibles or certain mindsets that people should have. What do you think are some key things that people should try to sharpen on or should try to have when they look to join or look to do this scope of work?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think be curious, and if you're curious about understanding what actually drives daily lives, infrastructure can be a very interesting sector. I think one key differentiating point around this sector compared to others is it's very fundamental to our lives, and it's actually a lot more important than what people think they are. And being in this space, I actually do feel that what I'm doing makes a difference to people's lives. Putting equity into developing projects that makes the environment cleaner, putting money into investing into assets that improves our daily lives. I think that's actually pretty interesting. It's not just about making returns for investors. You actually do create impact
for the greater economy. Yeah.
And I've left Macquarie now, but one of the statements that I really liked when I was there was the investments that we manage across our portfolio actually supports more than 100 million people on a daily basis. Well, that's a pretty big statement, right?
Yep.
And across all asset classes, roads, data centers, renewables, environmental infrastructure. And to me, I think that sticks out pretty well. It makes the job a lot more meaningful than just sitting in front of a desk for 8-12 hours a day.
Hey, you're talking about me, bro. Now you're making me feel bad because that's pretty much what I do. Get on calls with certain people, and I try to get off at a certain time. So Yeah, so no, I know what you mean. Yeah, I certainly know what you mean. Again, I'm just being self-deprecating, guys. I'm not that much of a loser, just so you know. Yeah, so I think yeah, that's an excellent piece of advice to share, and just a general understanding of how things work. Then, would you say in your mindset, maybe just this is something that I guess everybody thinks about is, would you say, what would you say the impact that having a good boss or having a good manager, direct reporting line. I mean, clearly that's important. But would you say how has your manager and your role helped you? And have you ever seen any cases where, without talking too much, have you seen any cases where you have seen examples of bad managers that have maybe a bit more distasteful managers? Have you seen those kinds of things? Yeah.
I think your colleagues and managers are very important. I believe that this is a people business at the end of the day.
Right.
So, I spend a lot of time at work, as you know. So
yeah, I do know.
For me to enjoy, or at least enjoy most part of the time that I spend with my colleagues is important. Otherwise, I don't think the lifestyle is sustainable. I've been very fortunate to have come across very good mentors and managers during my time at Macquarie, which is also one of the reasons why I've stayed there for 9 years, and leaving the organization was a very tough decision for me. And they've given me opportunities to be involved in transactions across the region, and I think I've been one of the more fortunate ones as well. Being based out of Singapore, I'm getting direct access to senior management that overlooks and oversees the region. We are not just colleagues, we're friends as well. When I left,
right,
they came up pretty strongly, and I still keep in touch with them, and we still meet up for drinks and dinners every now and then. So I think managers are very important, and I've been very fortunate. I've seen people who have not been as fortunate, and they ended up working for managers who are either not as competent or not as supportive, or just always focusing on their own agenda, and that's not helpful, particularly as you're spending 8, 10, 12 hours a day with these people. You tend to travel a lot. You tend to travel as well in my line of work, and when you travel, and to be honest, there's not that much things to do at night, right? You're either meeting people for dinners or drinks, and there'll be times when you're just alone by yourself, and when you're alone with your manager, you'll be hanging around with them, and it just becomes, it's not sustainable if you don't enjoy people, if you don't enjoy the company of people that you work with. So I think that's very fundamental. There are three things that people generally look for when it comes to career, right? One is, I guess, the compensation. The other one is opportunities, and the third one is a company of people around you. So usually you need at least two of the three for things to work out. If you have all three, that's a big bonus. Few people have that. If you have only one out of the three,
time to leave, right? Time to leave, right? Yeah. No, I totally know what you mean, man.
Yeah,
I totally know what you mean, man. I think managers are important. I think I've had my fair share of not so good managers, and I've had my fair share of good managers as well. The not so good ones, let's just say, I've seen maybe one who is a brat, and and then most of the thing that this person does is largely in self-interest. So I've seen my fair share of that as well, and it becomes very taxing to work for someone like that. So that is certainly an issue. So yeah, bro.
It's not perfect. I mean, there will not be a perfect
manager for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I think having an open channel where you can always communicate with the manager is important.
Yeah,
and that line of constant, not like constant as in daily, but a line of regular and frequent discussions and feedback helps to build that relationship as well, and being able to openly voice your opinions, I think is helpful.
Yeah, bro. So I think this I love the chat that we've been having so far, but I realized one thing is that this has become a bit like a freaking a job seminar at university. Bro, we are usually a lot more hurtful to each other in our comment in the way that we speak, right? So bro, I think let's keep this as fun as light as possible. No, I love the sharing. I think for a lot of people who are keen to enter the space or considering the space, suddenly this is very key information that I don't think is available that freely, if you know what I mean. So. Yeah, and maybe transitioning a bit to just between us, old friends. So I know that the last time you moved to Beijing as well, for 1 over a year. I've been in Hong Kong for slightly over a year now as well. So let's talk more about the juicy bits of Beijing in your experience. So how was working in Beijing like, and how would you say the culture has been different? So please feel free to share, man. I think it's fine to poke fun a bit and be a bit sarcastic. It's fine. I'm sure people won't take it personally. So, but how was your experience working in Beijing in terms of the way that people handle their business, or just in terms of the lifestyle that you face in Beijing? How is it different to when we were in Singapore working for some years?
Yeah, I mean, I should caveat that I was only there for slightly under 2 years. So obviously, my experiences are somewhat limited. I mean, before coming to what I think about Beijing for work, I think Beijing is actually an excellent city. It offers more culture, heritage, history. During my time there, I think the people you meet are very interesting. They're not just in that 3 to 5 sectors that people usually get themselves associated with in places like Hong Kong and Singapore.
Yeah.
You meet
especially Hong Kong, right? Especially Hong Kong. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Go into detail on that. I think during my time here, I've met artists, I've met film producers, I met directors, I've met people who are just so different, and people who actually, they don't think so much about whether they're going to make it. They just focus on their passion and they try and make it work. And to some extent, that's possible as well because Beijing is a very cultural city with a lot of
a huge diverse population, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just more diverse, right? And the city is there are like 30 or 40 million people, so the market is so much larger as well. And then coming to your question, Alvin, I think Beijing changed my perspective to some extent. It's taught me to be. It's actually taught me to think out of the box. It's taught me to be more flexible. I think growing up in Singapore, you're always in this system, and there is a formula to get to where you want to be. If you are willing to be, if you are diligent, if you
follow the rules, you stick to the rules, and you follow the formula of success.
Exactly, there's actually a pathway to getting to where you are if you just follow a formula. But here it's kind of, it's not that different from I think emerging markets in general. Here, you actually can get to where you are in many different ways. And you have to learn to be flexible. In China, as we all know, relationships are very important. People here make very good businessmen, not necessarily because
they are ultra smart, but because
Chinese are actually very good businessmen, right?
Yeah,
and they do very well, and they've done very well in the past. There's a saying actually, which is. Chinese make very good businessmen. Singaporeans make very good CFOs. I'm not sure how much of that you believe in. But
I'm not a very good CFO. I can assure you of that. Anyway, yeah, I know. I definitely know what you mean. I think in terms of handling situations, in terms of managing relationships, as you said, sometimes in China, maybe more so in China culturally as well, people place a high value on relationships, and then with deep relationships, people are more amenable to helping each other basically, and also in terms of if with good relationships there's a good amount of trust as well, and with a high amount of trust sometimes it's just easier to get things done or easier to get things moving. I think that's what the point you're driving at.
And just to give you an example, I think investors from the West they struggle in China because you focus so much on contractual relationship. You focus so much
on contractual relationships, you said. So just on the contracts part.
I think. Look, obviously my experiences in China has been limited, but one thing I do notice is, in China, people don't necessarily follow contracts. So I think that's a bit of a struggle when it comes to when when
you try to, when you try to
invest.
enforce a contract, it not necessarily gets to be enforced in the full nature that it's supposed to be. That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I think having been in Hong Kong for a while, and I chatted with some colleagues who are mainland Chinese. I think I have a reasonably decent understanding of your point. I think I know what you mean. Sometimes contracts are there to support the deal, but when it really comes down to it, when push comes to shove,
Yeah. I mean, I think this time we have to delete it. It's a bit wrong to say that.
yeah, okay, it's fine. No, I think it's fine. It's just not fully enforceable to a certain degree. It's fine. No, I think I know what you mean. Yeah. So
anyway, coming to working in China,
Yeah.
I think living in Beijing is a very fun experience. Working in China is somewhat challenging because language differences, cultural differences. But once you get around how things work, once you build relationships with with the network of people around you, you find that things they become easier in general, and it's actually a lot more convenient in Singapore. People are more flexible. People here are more accommodating. They're more helpful. And when you want to discuss business with people, when you build that relationship, things actually move a lot faster than you think. So I think working in China has its challenges, but there are also people who have done very well here, and there are people who ended up staying in China for a long time. I could have stayed in China for longer if not for COVID. I came to China around late 2018 and left in early 2020. A large part of that was because of COVID, and I went back to Singapore in 2020. So it was a short stint, but nevertheless,
you made an
I enjoyed it
impression.
very much.
Yeah.
And I still come back here very often. Not because of work, but because my fiance is here.
Right, fantastic. I think that's a good point. I think when I remember I was there with you late 2019, just before COVID happened, right?
Oh yeah, bro. We
Yeah.
went for Khao Chuan, right?
Yeah, Yang Rou Chuan. Basically barbecued lamb skewers, beef skewers as well. That was an experience. I think I haven't been back to at that point. I hadn't been back to Beijing for I believe 14 or 15 years. So having to being able to go back there at the time. And then having to basically couch surf in your apartment, I thank you for that, bro. And I think that was an experience, even though it was only, even it was only 3 days or 4 days, was it? I can't remember, but it was a fun experience, and I got to travel around Beijing as well during that period, which was quite nice. And then subsequently we went to Shanghai. I went to Shanghai to see another of our friend who was there. So that's fantastic, man, bro. So coming back to again making a steep bloody U-turn. So I know you're making good money. You're doing well in life.
I'm not.
You're doing well in life, and we always talk about watches, right? And it's something that we enjoy as well. So in the last, I think you've been collecting watches for what? I think 3 years now, maybe 4 years now. So can you talk to us about how your thinking has changed when it comes to watches? I know the pieces that you bought was in sold over time, but how has your thinking changed when it comes to buying? Maybe not so much collecting, but just in terms of buying.
I mean, I have to thank you when it comes to watches, right? You got me started to watches. So without you, there's no me.
What nonsense!
I think to be honest, I obviously don't know watches as much as you have been. For me, how I think about it is I'll buy what I will wear. And to give you an example, I used to have the white gold Daytona with the rubber strap, right?
Yeah.
I actually liked that very much, and I still liked it very much because of how it looks. But the reason why I sold that was because I just find myself not wearing it, and you don't wear it because it's such a heavy piece of watch. And one and two is, the white gold is actually quite soft. So when you knock against against something, you actually see a scratch there, literally a scratch. And look, at the end of the day, it's like I said, I'll buy what I will wear, and that was the reason why I sold that. Which on hindsight, we can agree that it was a bad decision because I bought it
at a very good price. Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty good price for a year of ownership, and then a year and a half later, it actually went up by 100% more in terms of valuation. Although that's probably come down by 50% since then. But it's one of those things you just wouldn't have known at the point you sold it, right?
I think
I would still have sold it because I'm just not wearing it enough. I think.
I think to your point on wearing it and then having to worry about scratching it when you bang it up. I think maybe at that point it wasn't so prevalent then to have the protective film that we have today. So I own a full gold Daytona again because I enjoy the watch, no flex. I also put protective layer, a protective plastic film around it. So that has really helped ease a lot of my concerns of having to wear it out and then potentially banging it and scratching it on the desk that I work at. So I think maybe having that in hindsight might have convinced you to keep it a bit longer. And worry, and not say worry, but be less concerned when you wear it out. I think that's a key thing to know, right? So tell me.
And if you see I only have I don't have many watches, but I like Datejust, and I have a Datejust 36mm, a blue Datejust 36mm with Jubilee band, which was what you bought and you sold it to me at a slight. Was it a slight premium? I think, can't remember.
Dude.
And I have 36mm Wimbledon rose gold Datejust. So both watches are very comfortable. They are watches that I can wear on a daily basis for different occasions as well. And that's why I like that, because I like them because obviously I like them because I think they look good. They're classic. But I also like that because I can wear it anytime.
Exactly, man. Speaking of Datejust. Yeah, I think the first Datejust that you got to rehash the story properly. I saw it was a discontinued Datejust in March of 2019, and then when I was traveling to Japan in April 2019, I actually in Kyoto Takashimaya departmental store I saw this and I bought it. So I was intending to keep it, but then I think someone, which is you basically, was telling me to sell it to you non-stop, and somehow in a moment of
I don't remember that part.
No, you were WeChatting me, WhatsApping me, telling me, convincing me to sell you, and in a moment of weakness, I relented and I agreed. And to this day, I'm not so sure I am comfortable with that decision. So, but in any case,
I thought you got another Datejust.
I did, but again, that one somehow it just didn't. It still doesn't sit right with me. I sold it, but I think the good part is
it's a different one, right? It's a different one, right?
Yeah, it's a different one. But the good part is, I know that I sold it to an old friend who I've known since I was 12 or 13 years old.
You know what, Alvin? You can always buy it from me. I'll just price it at a different
price it at the appropriate market price. Right? You see, I was about to say, I'm glad that it's with an old friend who I've known since I was 12 or 13 years old. Then you went on to, then you see the situation here. Then you said, oh, I'll just send it back to you.
I'll price it at a premium and I'll give you a slight discount.
Oh, what an asshole! What an asshole! What a kind thing to do. No. So the point on selling it is basically the tax refund that we got because I was a tourist in Japan. I basically split the difference with you. That's all. Yeah, that's all. And then, bro, I was carrying it for 6 days before I got back to Singapore. That's well.
I mean, look, I appreciate that watch very much. I wear it almost every day, unless I switch to either my Garmin watch or the Wimbledon.
Yeah. So okay. So everyone who's listening, you see, I was trying to get sentimental here about my friendship with this guy. Then he proceeded to say, "No, I'll sell it to you at the market price." What an unexpected turn of events. It just goes to show our relationship here as friends. I guess it's a bit one-sided at this point, given what has transpired in our conversation. So in terms of watches that you're looking to get in future, have you looked at anything? I know you just got a Cartier recently, or have you not gotten it yet?
I mean, I'm trying to.
You're trying not to spoil what?
I'm trying to spend. I mean, look, I'm trying to be. I think we're all very fortunate, but I'm trying not to splurge on watches unnecessarily.
Wow.
If you see the watches that I like. And again, I'm not as into watches as you. I like them because, one, I just like how they look, and two, I think I'll wear them. So these are the only reasons why I'll buy it. And if you look at the two Datejusts, they're classic. designs. They never go wrong, and you can wear and own them for a long time. So I think that's a good way for me to think about. That's my principle when it comes to looking at watches in the future. I thought the Cartier Santos Dumont looks pretty good. The XL one. And there are a few, right?
Yeah.
There's the steel one. There's the steel with a little bit of gold and all this stuff. I thought the rose gold one looks pretty good, so I'm actually trying to queue for one, and hopefully that one will come with a bagel or a Pepsi at retail. So that could be a pretty interesting deal, because both are watches that I like and I'll wear them. There are obviously better ones which everyone will want to get. The Patek 5711, the AP Royal Oak. These are things these are watches that are also very classic. It's just a question of whether you can get both of them, and I'm sure you can get if you're willing to pay the price. But obviously, I can't afford them at this point in time.
Yeah. Okay. No. I'm sure you can. Poh is just being very humble here. I assure you, when he's offline, when we're speaking offline, let's just say he's being humble, but it's a bit of humble bragging. Just kidding, bro. I am just over exaggerating a bit, but yeah, I can see that. I think hopefully the Santos Dumont is very interesting. Something, a classic watch that I always wanted to get, but I just have so many things queuing up ahead of it, to the point where it's not something that I will get in the near term. Huh? Sorry?
What's the next one?
No. So I just got the John Mayer, the blue G-Shock. A friend helped me buy for me and himself, $180. So it's to me, again, hopefully people understand the angle that we're driving at Watch Jetty or myself, is that watches do not have to be in the thousands. It doesn't have to be a luxury watch or a mid-tier luxury watch to be. You don't have to consider that kind of price segments for a watch to be considered a part of a collection. I think watches can be $50, $50 can be $200, Swatches, G-Shocks, Casios, anything, Seikos. And so I think that's the key thing that we're driving here. But I think within this conversation itself, we let's just say we're white collar professionals. We aspire to do well in life, and with that, with certain milestones that we hit, we have some aspirational pieces that we would like to get. I think that's a key point that we want to drive. But then again, it doesn't change the fact that G-Shocks are amazing. I hope you get into the world of G-Shocks soon, because Garmin is just Garmin. Sorry, Garmin. Yeah, if you're looking to sponsor me, I'll apologize.
It looks good as well.
Yeah, Garmin, if you're looking to sponsor us, I'll make sure to apologize. But then again, it's really an what do you call it? A health monitor of sorts, a sports monitor of sorts. So yeah, not so much a watch per se, if you know what I mean. So yeah, anyway, so in terms of maybe just to round off this podcast, thank you, bro, for coming on.
Of course, thanks for inviting me.
When are we gonna? When you said fiance, are we gonna expect anything soon? Is there a date involved before we end off the podcast?
Probably the next 12 to 18 months.
12 to 18 months?
Yeah, we're taking things slowly, one step at a time. But that's what we're probably looking at, late 23, early 24, that sort of timing. Yeah.
Fantastic, man. I hope you, as you mentioned earlier with the Santos Dumont, maybe that can be a piece that you get to commemorate your wedding day. Seriously, I think watches at this point, not so much trophies, but more so as a commemorative piece in life. Whether you get a promotion, whether you get engaged, whether you get married, I think these are important things to consider, which adds meaning to a watch. Otherwise, you don't really need a watch to tell the time, right? iPhone.
So you must have many things to commemorate, given you bought so many watches recently.
I think as you pointed out, I'm a collector, so I just buy as and when. But obviously, I do my very best to attribute meaningful occasions to the watch, so that I get teased by you guys less, right? Because I feel like I always get laughed at by you guys, and I feel a bit embarrassed sometimes for buying too many pieces. So anyway. So literally, guys, this is how our friendship works. It's been like this for almost for 2 decades now. Shit, for slightly over 2 decades now.
Almost 2 decades.
No, 2 decades, bro.
Oh, 2 decades,
Yeah,
right? Because I knew when I was 12, 13.
yeah. It's going to be 21 years. Yeah, it's going to
Coming
be.
into 12 soon, so it's more than 2 decades.
Yeah, it's going to be 21 years in a month that I've known you. I think I've known you.
Unfortunately, yes.
Wow. Oh, damn it, guys. You see, this is amazing, as usual. So, thanks, bro. I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for joining the Watch Jelly podcast. Thank you, guys. This is the first one in the series. We will continue to do this, hopefully reasonably on a good amount of on a good level of frequency. And thank you guys for tuning in. Poh, appreciate the time. I'll catch you in person. Hopefully, Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year in Singapore. Right?
Yeah, man. Cheers.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks, bro. Thanks so much. Bye bye.